Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ordeals. Um, Apparently, Russ and Mike both have ordeals to discuss
No,
before
no, I don't have an ordeal.
I do.
Okay.
But you, Russ, you start with yours.
Yeah. So I actually, I'm really getting into the Wimbledon action this year. I always watch every year. I watch. I watch most of the major tennis tournaments. I've been doing this for 30 or more years. But I have to tell you, there's some really great things like the women's division. Like there's so many upsets.
Yeah.
Like basically Serena Williams is left and Venus Williams is still in there and everybody else is out. Sharapova is out. Madison Keys is out. Sloane Stephens is out. Like a lot of big names are out. Yeah. But after Serena Williams wins, they flash up that she's won 17 straight matches in Wimbledon. Like that's considering she's just come off of stepped away from having a kid and coming back and not being fully 100% yet in her training. She's still dominating, and
that was insane.
But ESPN's doing a great job. And the one thing that was just pointed out in a commercial was that there's something like 109 cameras that are buried on the court, and they're coming up with some amazing graphs and where the balls are hit and everything else. And all it brings me back to is, why can't the NHL do this?
Yeah, I know. I mean, we live in an age in a totally crazy age of technology when it comes to filming goes. Like it's I mean, I am, my son is going to be probably a zoologist, so we watch a ton of nature documentaries, and if you see what's been done, like with the Planet Earth documentary.
Planet Earth, we were just watching Planet Earth 2 the other night. It's amazing.
They're phenomenal. I mean, they're phenomenal. But every time they do a new one, the way they get closer and closer to animals, because it's all being done with GoPros, and it's all being done with like they know the animals pass by this place every day. So you just put the GoPro there. You don't have any cameraman. You don't have any intrusiveness to them at all, and you catch things that you would never have caught before.
Yeah,
because it's cheap enough you can run a GoPro on an extended battery and film for 12 straight hours.
Right.
And in 4K, like it's crazy, and this is just making all these things. I mean, they recently, I was watching one, they discovered this cat that this kind of almost like a slightly bigger than a house cat.
Right.
It's never been discovered before. that was found in the Arctic, like. And they found it. They're trying to film something. They were trying to film these things called what are the tiny little rodents that run around the Arctic?
Lemurs.
Not lemurs, but you know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about.
Lemmings.
Anyway, I should be ashamed because my son would kill me right now. But anyway, these little rodents that run around, and they were trying to film them, and they realized that they're being chased by these cats that are like smaller than bobcats, bigger than house cats that live in the Arctic.
Yeah,
we found them before.
Great. So we discovered that that Sylvester and Tweety live in the Arctic.
No, but like I'll tell you what to me, and this is funny, right? Because everybody would think that sports sold me on HDTV, but it wasn't. It was really nature photography. When they were showing birds in flight,
oh my god,
and they were showing it from the bird's perspective, it was like my jaw dropped.
I hate to go into nature stuff completely, but I could do it. I love this stuff so much. I know you do too. But did they the show Nature, which comes on I think Discovery Channel, just did a whole series on animals with cameras attached to them, and where they would attach the cameras to little tiny cameras that they would attach to like part of the tracking device, and they saw things that they never saw before, and just how a group of lions hunt together, and it was just amazing. They went underground with meerkats, and like how they had these unbelievable cities underneath. Just incredible. I mean,
and that's what I'm saying. We need to bring it back to the hockey discussion and say there should be more cameras in hockey. The technology, they're doing it in soccer, they're doing it in tennis, and the NHL is sort of waiting on this.
Oh, yeah.
The best thing about the tennis coverage, and I haven't watched any yet, but it usually is John McEnroe, because I love his commentary, and it's basically he'll say what's on his mind, and sometimes it's not the most correct thing, but I like that. It's
I'm not sure John's doing it. I think it's Patrick.
Well, no, I know John does it.
Yeah, but I'm not sure I've heard him yet. And any like that.
Right, he may not do ESPN, but he usually does, like, if it's going on NBA. And I think
okay, right.
yeah,
Something?
yeah,
Okay.
I think he's under contract to NBC, and basically when they do the semifinals and the finals, he's
Yeah. Okay, so that's why I haven't heard it. But Patrick's real good too.
Patrick's a little good too.
Sportsnet coverage of Wimbledon with because they're they have the Canadian guy that just got eliminated yesterday, I think it was.
Djokovic?
Yeah.
No.
Name,
Not Pospisil, not
like Shapovalov.
not Milos Shapovalov. That's
Shapovalov, that's right. Well, Djokovic is a bad knee, so I wasn't sure if he was eliminated.
He's funny because he has. There's one he was arguing with the line, the judge there.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, didn't you see? And he called him dude like 4 or 5 times in a row, which they said was had to be.
Believe me, unfortunately, I know every Canadian tennis player because when I've listened for updates, I hear about Shapovalov. I mean, I the only one I care about is Jeannie Bouchard for obvious reasons. Now let me just briefly, because I'm sure people want to hear about the hockey talk, and Eck, your microphone's a little low.
Okay.
Last night, a friend of mine messaged me a couple days ago and said, do you want to go see Sarah McLachlan? Which I'm like, immediately yes. And free ticket. He got a comp ticket. And I said, sure, definitely. I'll drive, if you provide me the ticket. It was at a place called Casino Rama. And I didn't exactly know how far Casino Rama was from Toronto. The Casino Rama is up in cottage country, basically. It's up in Orillia, Ontario, which is like about an hour and a half north of Toronto. And to get there without being like basically having to take a second mortgage out for your tolls, we had to take side roads, which was not the quickest way. If you're going to the QEW and it's 100 kilometers away, it takes an hour. This took like an hour and a half, plus it was torrential downpour, thunderstorms, and rush hour traffic. So it was worth it because Sarah McLachlan is always great.
Right.
But if I knew it was that far, I may not have gone.
That's fair. I have one last thing to say about Wimbledon. There's a guy now that's playing Federer, and he's got his hat on backwards. Like once you go up against Roger Federer, who's basically like James Bond, and you got a guy and he's got his hat on backwards, you've already lost.
Yeah, you're already done. I agree with you. That's completely ridiculous. All right, let's get to it, shall we? Okay, it is Friday. This has been the weirdest week because I was hoping my sunburn that I got by sitting at our family thing on the 4th of July outside would cover my dark circles under my eyes, but it really has just made me look ridiculous. Like I definitely look way too red and tired. But yep, that's the way it goes. Let's do it. Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, July 6th, 2018.
For us?
I thought you were gonna go.
How many times have we done this?
Hey, fine. I'm
Mike, you're always
sportsology.
I'm Michael Jello. What's going on here?
You go second usually.
Yeah, I'm tired. I got home at 3 a.m.
Aren't you second, Mike?
Mike is usually second. That's what I said.
Usually, when I'm hosting the show and you're not here, I'm the one who does it last. But when I'm a guest,
how can our viewers possibly trust us?
Oh, just go, please.
You know what it is? I'm going to tell you what it is. He's got the Shemp syndrome. When Mo wasn't around, Shemp thought he was in charge. And when you're here, Eck, clearly Shemp thinks he's in charge.
Right. I've noticed this. But that's okay. We're good. Okay. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. That's Michael Jello, and that is Russ Cohen from Sportsology. And so that would be, if you're looking at that, that's Michael Jello, and that's Russ Cohen. And Mike's out of here. See you later, Mike. All right. This is a place where you can talk about hockey. And where, well, you can't talk about it, but we can talk to you about it.
Yes.
Because you can't respond visually or verbally. But that's all right. You can go in the chat room. Absolutely. In the chat room, you can talk to us that way. You can chat with us. But anyway, we've got a lot to get into because despite the fact that it is, hello, Mike. Despite the fact that it is July 6th, and we are one day away from my mom's birthday, which usually signifies sort of the end of the free agent frenzy for me. We're not quite there yet.
No.
So yesterday, what shall be now called Carlson Gate. Yesterday we started getting word early in the day that the Lightning were closing in, and you kind of knew this was coming. This wasn't going to be kept in a big, like, secretive way, because there's a lot of pieces in play here. There's a lot of players involved. There's a lot of teams involved. There's a contract negotiation going on. So at some point, something's going to leak out that Tampa is getting close to getting a deal done. And then why not? It makes sense. Tampa is a great team, and apparently what you would think has the pieces, and no one has any idea how the hell they're going to work out the salary cap, but that's fine. So, and then last night, someone from TSN, and the TSN summer crew, I call them, reported that that this was done pending the trade call, which of course can happen at any time of the day, but didn't happen last night and didn't happen.
Well, the guy who did it was a local Ottawa TSN guy.
Right.
So
right. Right. It's a TSN. So, because what happens in the summer is, like, everybody's off at the cottage now, right? Pierre LeBron and all these guys, they're all, and Mackenzie, they're all at the cottage, and they really could care less where Carlson goes. Lucky them. So they could just come back and fall and say, oh, he's on Tampa. Wonderful. But we meanwhile have to stick back, and a lot of these other TSN guys are doing the same thing, and they're sticking back and making sure that you guys out there know what the hell's happening. So it's fine, and it still might get done at Tampa in Tampa, and it takes it's definitely a little bit of a rookie mistake to do the pending the trade call thing in that situation, but that happens. It happens, and it's fine. And that, because immediately, if you don't have double or triple confirmation on something like the Carlson trade going down, you really can't go with it. Except to say that it's progressing and it's getting close, which I think is really what is the case today. I still believe that. However, there's a couple different rumors that are out there, and even since I put up my blog, that I'll throw at you. First off, the Rangers are not happy about at least the rumored deal we hear. And I don't think they should be happy with it. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense from their perspective to take Callahan back at all. Honestly, it makes very little sense.
He just had reconstructive shoulder surgery. You're getting nothing.
What are you doing? Unless now I reported yesterday, and then I was thrilled. It's so funny. I reported yesterday that that Kucherov could possibly be involved in this, and this was after our podcast where we talked about it. I talked to another person who said yes as well, and then I put it up there, and of course somebody else on the internet somewhere said made up a rumor that Kucherov could be involved, and then then of course I was stealing that rumor, which is not at all the case, for what it's worth. And then I was happy today when I heard Eric Erlinson, who is former Hockey Buzz writer and currently has a really good website of his own, come on XM and say the same thing, that this is that Kucherov has been discussed, and that this is something that is part of this process. And whether or not it happens or not is still far off. Whether or not this is Kucherov being discussed for the future, the Rangers seem like they are very high on, and as everybody is, but I think they could actually get Kucherov at some point or another, whether it's now, whether it's a year from now.
Well, I still think they're going for Panarin. I don't know if they're focused on Kucherov, because I don't think they think Kucherov will really be there for them. So I think they're focused on Panarin, who seems pretty obvious that he's going to test free agency.
I remember this about Kucherov. After this year, he's an RFA, arbitration eligible RFA, and I believe he's got one more year until he's a UFA.
Right.
So if they make a Carlson deal, I seriously doubt that Kucherov's going to be involved in it, because Kucherov there for 2 years gives them a leg up to winning the Stanley Cup. I mean, it's one more piece. I mean, you may lose him after 2 years, and there are other ways to clear cap space. So I'm not doubting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that what we don't know is things are discussed, and all I know is it was discussed. Now, whether or not that, and we can't assume that it's even about the Carlson trade. Like, there's other things as well. I mean, it would make sense that we hear the Rangers are the third team, but now I hear another team, maybe the third team, taking salary cap space.
I mean, you're an expert on this. If they sell the Phil Esposito statue, can they put that money towards the cap?
Probably. There's a lot of money there. Probably that would be like league-wide revenue and split like 31 ways. But yeah,
is it made of gold or bronze?
No, it's a bronze, but everybody touches it before they go in.
Yeah, it's bronze. It's a big one though. It's a big statue. Yeah, it's just kind of weird to have a statue of yourself when you're alive. I just want to say that. But anyway, statues are not something for the living. Just ask the Amish. But anyway, the sorry. I lost my train of thought completely. So now there might be another team being the cap space team, and because the Callahan thing doesn't really make any sense, and it's not something that the Rangers, and if the Rangers want to be the cap space team, the Rangers do have cap space to take on, but the New York Rangers are not a team that takes on cap space for other teams. It doesn't make
No, that's why
they're a team that spends wildly when they have cap money, but they don't take on cap space. They're not just going to swallow up cap space. They're going to do something with their cap space.
Right.
I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Well, okay.
I think there's a bigger player involved, and if the Rangers are involved, Callahan's involved, then it's part of something like Tyler Johnson also being involved, or something else is happening, and Callahan is
all of a sudden the Rangers are the dumping ground for the Tampa.
Right.
Hold on. There is something that came to mind just now. I don't know why. Maybe it's the caffeine. They could do what was done for Brooks Orpik and take on Callahan, buy him out, and then Tampa get him back cheaply. If there's a good player involved in that, then it may be worth it for them to be a dumping ground.
But he's got 2 more years, and the buyout would spread over 4 seasons.
Right,
so
they might do it if it's a top-notch.
It depends if they're getting a good player, like say they're getting a Palat in the deal or something. I mean, there's a big missing piece.
There is a possibility for that.
Right.
I mean,
if the Rangers are involved, there's a big missing piece to this puzzle.
Here would be the cap ramifications of a Callahan buyout if he is traded to the Rangers, or if Tampa Bay would have to. There's a second buyout window.
It's buyout ramifications with Michael Jello. Ready, go.
Well, no, but the funny thing is that you really can't buy him out right now because he's on the IR. He's had shoulder surgery, so
that's true.
You wouldn't be able to buy him out.
That's a good point.
This moment, we don't know if he comes off the IR before the trade. Who knows?
Well, right. But
players are very rarely traded when they're on the IR too. That's another thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, it was reconstructive shoulder surgery, and it was after the playoffs. And I remember them saying it was like 4 to 5 months, so he would miss, most of the summer and the training camp.
Oh my God! For reconstructive shoulder surgery, 4 to 5 months. That's like a.
Yeah, I believe it was that.
I don't think he has a lot of shoulder left, Eck. I mean,
that sounds like his shoulders have become his knees. Yeah. That's not good. Who's going to trade for a $6 million player with a missing 5 months on reconstructive?
No, that's why there would have to be a big pot of gold at the end.
Yeah, there's something else involved, and whether it may not be Kucherov. I mean, like I said, that does sound crazy, and I agreed when I put it up there. I wrote it sounded crazy.
Hold on, Mike. When Pronger was traded, he was on the LTIR. You can trade a guy.
You can trade, but that's when a player is obviously done. I mean that's
Callahan
like,
could be done.
Maybe they know something. Maybe they do. Maybe they know he's done. That's possible.
If the shoulder's really that bad, it is possible he's done.
Yeah, that is possible. There's so many different ways to go. So I hear now that another team is in a dump. Another team is in as a dumping ground place. And this could be where you look at, a team that actually can do something like that, like Arizona has done it before, or even Vegas, like who has cap space could take a player on with the draft pick and for the future, or whatever, and do something big there, right? So, and now also about an hour ago, I talked to a source in Dallas who said Dallas is still very much in this, as much in this as Tampa is, and people need to shut up and stop talking about it because it's absolutely the case. So. For what it's worth, Dallas still believes, at least they still believe it from their perspective, that they are still very much in on this.
Well, the crux of the problem with Dallas is what Ottawa is looking for. I heard, I think it was Elliot Friedman yesterday talking about a package that involved like either Julius Honka and Hintz, their prospect forward.
Rube Hintz,
Jason Dickinson, and a first-round pick, something like that. And the reports are out there that they were asking for Heiskanen, who was the third pick overall in last year's draft.
Right, who they don't want to give up, of course. But
the thing is, it's like, okay, then if you're not getting a linchpin prospect and now somebody who could eventually replace Carlson, then what is the point? You need to get. I mean, I think Dickinson, I think Hintz, I think Honka can be good players, but you need to get one guy at least that can ascend to a higher level. And if you don't get Heiskanen, then is it possible that this whole Tampa thing is sort of a ruse to get Dallas to kick up their offer a notch.
Or to get Vegas.
Absolutely, I think it is, and I even said that to you offline yesterday, Mike. I think if Dorian's smart, he pulls back and he tries to get Heiskanen one more time because a GM can continue to say a guy's off the table, but then when teams talk about a guy and realize, hey, we think we might be able to win the Stanley Cup with this guy, we'd hate to lose Heiskanen. Sometimes the teams will change their mind.
Oh yeah, and it could be they say no right away, but then they come back and they say yes. I mean, this happens. This happened before with the trade, the JVR thing when they first got traded to Philly. So from Philly to Toronto. I mean, things happen. People do change their minds, and that's why I say that the Karlsson thing is. That's why I kind of said it's at a place where rumors usually die, because it's at the point where we're talking about, like, you and me trying to buy the car from each other, or whatever, and now we're just going back and forth on the phone, So what happens next? No one's going to be able to sit there with a rumor and predict, what happens next on where it's the only thing you can say is, okay, like I said, another team might be the third team. That's possible.
No, I did. My memory was not faulty for once. Ryan Callahan, it was last month. He had shoulder surgery and he was expected to be 5 months out. So he was going to miss training camp in the beginning of the season. So,
and there could be more developments that we don't know about with that.
Right.
Yeah, there could be, and there,
was just the initial prognosis. We don't know what's happened since that.
Right, and that's a big thing to remember. I mean, there's so much happening right now, and there's so many moving pieces, and this is such an important moment for the Ottawa Senators.
It is.
That Dorian, is going to take his time. There is absolutely no rush on him right now to do this. And there's really not. And Dallas, I think is pushing a little bit. I think Tampa's fine. Like, if Tampa doesn't get him, I think Tampa just stays put as they are. But Dallas, if they don't get him, I think Dallas suddenly gets in on Skinner, and Dallas wants to do one more thing. That seems.
Yeah, I could see Skinner for Dallas, but the funny thing about Tampa is this. I don't know Jeff Vinnick, but it just seems like he wants to push the chips in this year because he sees the way the East is. He feels like, all right, Pittsburgh's not as good as they were 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And he feels like because they lost the coach, maybe they'll have a struggle to repeat. Right. The Rangers are out of it. The Islanders are out of it. They're usually, even if nothing else, even though Tampa beats the Rangers, they always injure them in the playoffs, right? They always bring them a long way in the playoffs. And so I think they're looking at that and saying, this may be our shot with this group. Right here,
Vinnick's an amazing owner. Okay, and he is, like we talked about yesterday. Like this is not a marketplace that is pounding down the door for him to do this. He's doing this on his own, my in-laws, in full disclosure, live like right down the street from him in Longboat Key. I've seen the guy. I've talked to him. I've run across him. He's building a beautiful new house down there. But he just totally, absolutely cares about this team, completely and 100% cares about this team and cares about what happens with him. And he's full in. There's no two ways about it. He's totally full in. Dallas is a different situation. Go ahead, Mike.
But they have a 2-year window, right, with Kucherov, and that you're talking about Stamkos.
What's interesting
let me make my point. They got a 2-year window with Stamkos in his late 20s. He's had massive injury problems, but he stayed healthy last year. But right now he's healthy. I assume that if they trade for Karlsson, that they're going to extend him for 8 years. If they're going to trade all the assets that is rumored that they're going to trade, you would assume that they're going to get him locked up. But the Kucherov factor, I think, is a big factor. And as I said yesterday, this move, if they make a move for Karlsson, is a counter to the Tavares signing in Toronto. And because now Toronto is loaded. Right now, and I'm not saying because they're the odds-on favorite in Vegas, because we all know that's bunk. But right now, with Tavares and Matthews 1-2 at center, if the Leafs improve their defense, they're the odds-on favorite in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, but that is a huge little disclaimer.
Right, but I think that Karlsson being traded to Tampa is going to force Toronto to make that move for the defense, because if they
no, you're right. You're right. I mean, it's an arms race, right? It becomes an arms race. It definitely is an arms race now. I don't think that Tampa is thinking too much about Toronto in this deal. I don't
think they are either.
I think that I mean Toronto is still a little bit away from where, I mean, they are definitely, there's no question they are on the right path. They're doing the right thing.
About Pittsburgh and Washington.
I think they're thinking about Pittsburgh. I think they're thinking about some teams out west, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely, because they're looking at Stanley Cups. The conference finals doesn't mean anything to Tampa. They're looking at winning Stanley Cups, right? So they're looking at the speed you have to play against Vegas, like we saw, or the size you have to play against Vegas. You know, should Vegas get there again? San Jose is building up.
Yep.
San Jose is going to make another move. They could get Jeff Skinner. What happens then? You know, they could get Pacioretty in San Jose. I just heard about 5 minutes ago.
This is another reason why the other day, even before I saw the report from David Pagnotta saying that the Devils could be this surprise team in there, you just think about it naturally. If the Devils don't do something, they've fallen out of this.
Devils fans are really upset about what's going on right now, and they should be
inaction.
And the weirdest thing about Devils is, why the hell haven't they signed Patrick Maroon, who wants to play there?
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't understand.
And who looked good there and played fine, and they've got all the money they need in the world. I mean, you know, we all thought, and I mean, I'll be the first to admit that I guess I was 100% wrong on this, that Patrick Maroon was going back to Edmonton, because I had talked to people out there, and I had talked to, you know, and talked to people who talked to McDavid directly. McDavid said, you know, even when he was getting traded, he was told he was going back to Edmonton, but then that apparently isn't going to happen. And now, or at least not until they do something with Lucic, but which is going to be almost impossible to do. So why the Devils haven't signed Maroon is staggering to me. Like, this is a guy who actually liked it there, played really well with Hall, could actually continue. And what the hell? Like, what?
They have $23 million in cap space.
Well, I know. What are they doing?
First of all, I think that right now these teams, even though they have a massive amount of cap space, they're interested in getting the best deal they possibly can for some of these players. So they're going to string.
Yeah, but they're going to lose. They've lost out doing that. You know.
I know that. I know that they have, but I mean, there are forward wise, there are some free agents out there that if they lose out on Maroon, they might, you know, get somebody who can fit just as well or almost as well. And, you know, maybe they're operating under a budget. I mean, we don't know what, you know, Russ, you know that owner because he's the owner of the 76ers. You know him better than I do. I mean, is he a guy who's very fastidious when it comes to his budget?
No, actually, when he got there, he wanted to sort of make a splash similar to New York metropolitan teams. And wanted to sort of keep pace with them. But now that the other New York metropolitan teams have sort of fallen back, he sort of is.
He's a little disinterested. I think there's also a lot going on with. I wonder what the LeBron James things did.
Well, that's what I do think that took a little out of them, but they certainly have had enough time now. That's a week ago. They certainly had
there was a lot of energy in Philadelphia put into that, right? So,
no question.
And for him, that's like. I mean, that is so much bigger than anything possibly with the Devils, right? So you're looking at, but I do think, you know, if you know, it was really interesting. If you get a chance to, if you have Sirius XM on your phone, you can listen to some things, like you can listen to Russ sometimes on demand. And Russ does a great job. They love him there. He's on every 5 minutes. So. I
just did my last Stella.
I know. I heard. That's why I'm saying I heard it this morning. Yeah,
they got you on speed dial.
No, but yeah, Russ is always like he is the man. We are so lucky to have him on the show. So because you know he's so in high demand there. But if you listen to, so if you go back, you can listen to Lou Lamoriello's interview that they did that yesterday. Did you hear that at all? Because they replayed it like 12.
I did.
They replayed it like 1,200 times too because they're on like this. You'll hear Russ, I think, again at 2, at 5. At 7, because there's only like 2 shows they're actually replaying.
They'll be replaying the Hockey Prospect Radio for the draft again.
No.
We've gone really down a rat hole here, but I have to say that I put on, you know, today to see if like Sportsnet Central might be play at noon. You know, it's done right, and instead the NHL Network is giving you all the excitement of the Florida Panthers versus Buffalo Sabres replay. Like, where are we? Like, what have we become?
We have a show here, folks.
That we need to watch the Panthers Sabres again. I mean, oh my God, sorry. I know it was
Hockey Buzzcast on NHL Network.
like-
How
it's
about
like-
that, folks?
someone from the Sabres. I wanted to tweet it out, and I know if I did, someone from the Sabres would be like, "Yeah, this is really awesome of them to let me see again how the Florida Panthers, how our one."
I needed to analyze how the Sabres finished in 31st.
Gosh, oh man, oh, it's unbelievable. So anyway, that's so let's get back. Where were we?
No,
I'm
we
gonna
were
wing my way
talking
back.
about
Carlson.
Devils and
Russ, Eric Carlson, Carlson,
we're talking about the Devils. And
Devils. Thank you. All right. Yes, thank you, Lou. All right, Lou's interview.
Yes.
Really awesome. Listen to it for sure. And one of the things they asked him about the signing of the guy they brought down from Toronto, right?
Oh man, or Komarov.
Komarov, right? And he said, yeah, yeah, people are kind of upset. It's in Lou's typical fashion. It's too much money. It's too many years. He's like, and of course it is. This is way too much money for that guy. It's way too many years. He's like, first thing I tell everybody when they sign a contract, I'm like, congratulations, you've gotten too much money and too many years out of me. But he said, that's what I say to every contract I've ever done. He said, but then you sit back and you say, what's the fair value? And I got to do it. So what am I, and this is what the Devils aren't doing. Like Devils. This is what Lou, who is like as conservative as you, if Lou is out conservativing you, and you're the Devils have to like wonder what the hell's going on, because the word that I heard in Toronto was that this was essentially a 2-year deal, because if you look at Komarov, he's making $4 million in year 1, 3.5 in year 2, and then it drops to 2.5 and 2. And he's gone back to the KHL a couple times. The thought is a 2-year deal masquerading as a 4-year deal, and then after year 2 he goes. I hate players who do that. By the way, I would never have a player on my team like that's constantly threatening to leave.
No,
he's not threatening to leave. I mean, like he
does. He leaves. And
you mean like Ilya Kovalchuk?
Yeah, like Ilya Kovalchuk, or like when you had like how many times were you on like a men's league team and there was the one guy I was like, I might play, I might not play.
Komarov went back to the KHL in 2014 because he wanted to play for Finland in the Olympics, and he knew that he was only going to get fourth line ice time with the Leafs at that point with Randy Carlyle, and he decided to go back and play for CSKA Moscow, and he played for Finland in the Olympics.
But how do you root for this guy? Like he's like obviously just doing whatever. I mean, all players doing what's best for them, but this is just over the top. Like it's like
sure. But there was one telling thing in that interview.
Yeah, go ahead.
And this is when Lou was talking about Leonard and said, well, in the past, we gave up a lot of assets for Schneider and we gave up a lot of assets for Anderson, but we're not doing that here. Now, what that basically told me was that what I was told and what I had reported here months ago was that until the Islanders get their new arena, they are not spending big bucks, so they're not going to give up huge assets, and they're not doing it.
Well, it's funny because they referred to him through the interview because I at the time I
thought they might with Lou there, but no.
Yeah. When he was when Lou was being interviewed was, in all the craziness of the 4th of July, I've got hundreds of people down at the shore. Carlson Flyers starts coming up. I start chasing that a little bit, but we're all between like a couple Baileys, Baileys on the rocks and like running up and down and Suns. I missed Robin Leonard altogether signing with the Islanders. Okay, like I missed it completely. I didn't even know it happened. All right, so I'm listening to the Lou interview the next day, which is like insane. How could I not know this? And he says, and he doesn't even mention Leonard he says, yeah, well, we signed the free agent goalie, and he doesn't even mention him by name in the beginning. And I'm like, what free agent goalie? And I figured out right after, and you can't possibly, people are going to rip me to shreds. There's no way with everything that's going on that you can possibly pick up on everything that happens. It's just, there's going to be things that miss you no matter what. Even though I listen, my family will tell you that I spent the last 5 days with an earpiece in my ear all the time.
Yeah.
I did it when I was on the show. Just getting texts, getting calls, listening to radio. I have an app on my radio that I can listen to every radio station like that talks hockey throughout the country. So I'm listening to Toronto radio. I'm listening to Rob Kerr in Calgary. I'm listening to out in Vancouver. Oh man, I am so sick of hearing about the Toronto Blue Jays. I can't even begin to tell you. I'm sitting there going through, it's just like, anyway, but that's besides the point.
But here's the thing though, Eck, I really did think this team was going to trade a first round pick for a goalie. And I do believe that Lou's hands were tied when he wanted to do it.
Well, I also think they're really, who was there really, like at the same point, like I thought he would go for, I actually thought Cam Ward was their best option because I thought that here's a guy who could come in and he's not going to get not a lot of years. Or, Glenn Anderson, which we had talked about. By the way, Glenn Anderson might be coming to the Flyers too. That's another thing I have to put up later.
Right,
but that's
not Glenn
Craig
Anderson.
Anderson.
Retired in the Hall of Fame.
Craig
not
Anderson.
Glenn Anderson.
Craig Anderson.
See,
So you don't think if they
See,
all
then you wonder why I didn't go first on the show.
I know we're all exhausted, but Craig Anderson.
Hold on. If they would have offered the 11 or 12 for Anderson, I believe they would have had a deal.
But why would they with the two guys that were there? I mean, honestly, they made two awesome draft picks.
Well, because here's a thought. You have to actually have a team that needs to be competitive at some point. And right now, when we look at the Islanders, unless they get Erik Karlsson, they've taken at least a 2 or 3 year step back.
Right. But now maybe, and Robin Leonard, I mean, I'm not a Leonard fan at all. And I was surprised
I think he's pretty good. And he had a pretty good year. But he had a pretty good year with not a great defense. He's got a little better defense with the Islanders. But again, I don't know if he can handle the number one load, which means that Greiss probably plays.
Greiss is not a terrible backup. You know, like if you have
this is okay. What's going on here is that the Islanders have had a 1A, 1B scenario the last few years with Halak and Greiss, and now they're in a 1A, 1B scenario with Leonard and Greiss. It's the same. It's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, and they're doing the same thing. And the thing with Leonard is, and Russ is right, he put up good numbers with the Sabres. The problem is every time he got on a streak, he got hurt. Or there was something, some argument that he had, or some, flame out, or something. There was always something. That a team doesn't believe in a guy when they don't pick up the option on him for $4.5 million for 1 year and decide to go out and sign Carter Hutton for 3 years.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you something. The Islanders, for all that stuff, for all this, and losing Tavares, and then Lou trying to reunite the fourth line from the 2006 Islanders, whatever it is, all the stuff that's happening.
Yeah,
which is the best fourth line back then when I was in New Jersey. It's like, yeah, okay.
But he even admitted it. But that was a few years ago.
Right, it was quite a few years ago, but that's okay.
Yeah. I honestly, I think the reason for that trade is simply money.
Yeah.
Matt Martin, but it also is a little bit of fan excitement there. But at the same time, I think that also plays into it, because you bring back something that the fans loved.
Yeah, they did.
But Matt Martin's got a $2.5 million cap hit. Yeah. Russ, what'd you say? They're $20 million under the cap. He's got a $2.5 million cap hit.
That was the Devils. Hold on.
Okay, I'm sorry. With the Islanders, I think it's like something like $19 million. $2.5 million cap hit, and he's been paid his signing bonus, so he's a $1 million money.
Right.
That's I mean.
No, you're right. But here's the thing about the Islanders: you got to remember this is the sport of hockey.
Almost $20 million for the Islanders.
There you go.
This is the sport of hockey. Okay, what happens when they lose Tavares? Like they shouldn't have lost him. They're tumbling out of control. Like we say, they lose to Hahn, who they didn't really even try to keep. They went through all this stuff. What happens in the NHL is they will be in the playoffs at Thanksgiving. Like they'll be like, this is the way. You know what I mean? It's like it's going to happen that the Islanders are going to come out flying because there's all these changes and everything that's going on. You got Trotz as a coach, which is a great move.
Yeah,
Trotz is really good. I mean, he put some Nashville teams in the playoffs that had no business being in the playoffs way back when.
Agreed.
They're going to be really exciting to start. I mean, they're a team like in my 30.
Their first West Coast swing or Western Canada swing, and here's what I would worry about. Last year they had an off the charts great offensive year, and so like Thomas is in the chat room telling me about Anders Lee's 40 goals and Matt Barzal's 6 points, and that was all with John Tavares. So now without Tavares, we could say their offense will be 15% less effective no matter who they add, right? So even if their offense is close to what it was last year, and with this slight upgrade in goal, if it's an upgrade, because Greiss is still going to play more games than you want him to, how much better are they? They're not.
It's impossible to say they're better because they've lost Tavares, but at the same time, Lou was quick to say that teams win. I said in the interview, teams win Stanley Cups, not superstar players. That's all the good stuff to say. Obviously, that is Lou talking, and that is what a general manager has to say, right? But you do have to realize that there's a lot of good young talent on the island, and there's a lot of good speed there. The defense is their problem. It's still a problem. They still haven't addressed it enough. I wouldn't be shocked at all if they got
no DeHaan. You've got aging guys there. Letty is great. And
I wouldn't be surprised if they get Justin Falk. I think they're probably the favorite to get Justin Falk, which will help them. He's an American guy that Lou knows really well.
How many years are left on Boychuk's deal?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and
4. Hold on.
That's a whole nother story, right? But yeah, so I think, and like you said, the Rangers. I mean, when you look at the division, Carolina, I don't see the same kind of like energy from Carolina, even though they're being counted out. Like I think that it's a whole different kind of world, right?
Yeah.
When you lose to Varys and you're thrown into the immediate underdog role, and Lou and Trotz are two guys that love the underdog roles, so they'll flourish in that, and they'll be an interesting team to watch. They'll be tough to play against. They're not gonna make the playoffs at the end of the year, but they're gonna be a tough team, and they will be in the playoff hunt. They'll be like the one team, like the two. There's always two teams at Thanksgiving that are in the playoffs that don't make the playoffs. They'll be one of those two teams. I can tell you right now, it's a preview of my 30 wacky predictions for this year. Just like I said Vegas would be one of those teams, but I never thought they would be in the playoffs, obviously. But yeah, so we forgot something though in the Carlson thing. I've started taking notes during the show. By the way, if you notice, I have a pen, so I'm taking notes.
That's
so
good.
Don't want to forget everything I think of as we go along. We're mentioning the big thing about the Carlson issue, the big hang up there. You're talking about Dallas not wanting to trade that particular player, what have you. There's a bigger issue. The bigger issue is the only team Carlson has agreed to an extension with is Tampa.
Right.
So that is by far the biggest issue because
limits your market.
Right.
What he has done is kind of like, and they're comparing it in Tampa. Eric Earlson compared it to Marty St. Louis with New York. Like this is like they have one place they can trade him. And really right now, that's the one team that can do it. And so Tampa, and so now who knows what's happening today if Dallas or Vegas or even Philly are trying to get an extension going. But right now, as of now, the only team as of this morning is Tampa.
I want to tell you who the 6 defensemen are right now for the Islanders. It's Letty Boychuk, Iki Pulak, Aho Pelech.
Yeah.
That is not a good defense. It's not like it used to be.
The only leg up that Dallas has, I mean, Texas can match Florida in terms of being a non-tax state, which that goes well. That goes big for a number of players. But the leg up that Dallas has is that Mark Mathot, Carlson's buddy from Ottawa and his defense partner, is on the Stars.
Right.
And
that helps. I mean, but also the travel in Dallas is horrendous. Like that's
the worst travel in the league.
It is, and players don't love that. And the other thing, though, I will throw this out there that Carlson might actually enjoy getting out of the division himself.
Sure.
Like, does he really want to go to all these places all the time? Like, does he want to go back to Ottawa and Montreal and Toronto a lot? Like if you're him, you especially don't want to go back to Ottawa.
It's Alexei Yashin if he liked going back.
Yeah. It's like, if he goes out there, he comes back to Ottawa once a year. They play him,
right, he'll deal with it.
They'll be happy to see him. But if he comes back 4 or 5 times a year, and it's just a totally different world.
Yeah.
So I think that's something to look out for sure.
We do need to talk about the minor moves. Like yesterday, we didn't mention Christian Folin, and the interesting thing about that was like Flyers fans got apoplectic about it because they were like, "Oh my God, if Folin's there, then Philip Myers may not make the team." And it's like he shouldn't make the team. I don't care how good he looks at Dev Camp. He's played 63 pro games. Let him start in the AHL. Let him play 20, 30, 40 games without getting hurt, and then you worry about where Phil Myers is. But Folin's a pretty good defenseman. Like, he's got a great shot. He skates fairly well. Now, somebody said, well, look at his zone chart. He's going to need help getting the puck out of the zone. I will tell you this. He is a good passer. He will need help getting the puck out of the zone. But that's Dave Haxtell's system. Nobody could take the puck out of the zone on their own anyhow.
You're not allowed to. Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't matter. So he'll be fine.
It was a really good Hextall sneaky move. He's made a couple of these before. This is one of his better ones, and I think around the league people were really impressed in general. When I talked to people yesterday, everybody was saying, "Wow, I can't believe Hextall got full," and that was a good move for them.
It was.
It opens up a lot of opportunity. I mean, it's much cheaper than DeHaan. It doesn't put you into that ball wax, but doesn't change. It's not that much different. It might end up being close to the same thing, and not
It's the Brandon Manning role, and he's bigger, and they were both physical. So pretty much he's going to be Brandon Manning.
Yeah. Does this get Rad Kogutis out of here? Is that the question? That's a lot of people asking.
Doesn't seem like it.
Doesn't seem like it either. No.
It doesn't seem
I mean,
like it.
I don't have an issue with Gudis as much as a lot of people do, but
Well, second half of the season, he did come back a little gun shy. He did tail off for what the Radko Gudas used to do because, let's face it, Ron Hextall was a little disappointed in some of the bad penalties. And then when he toned it down a little too much.
Yeah, because he's got to play the way he's going to play, and that's it, And it is a hard spot for him to be in because you almost can't tell him to tone it down. You have to just your coach has to pick the spots for him and make it work. Because when you're putting him out there, that's a risk that comes with it. But it also does make teams have to keep their head up a little bit, which you need in this NHL with the speed it's gotten to. And that's still I really do feel that was kind of the thing that's missing about the whole Washington win is the fact that they were way more physical than Vegas, and that played into it. And that it's the first Stanley Cup in a long time I felt like where the physicality was one of the top 3 factors in a series. That in the Stanley Cup it was a physical team against a non-physical team, and that did play into it.
Well, the other tinkering move that happened just about an hour ago, which I'm not blowing this out of proportion because he's had a difficult time the last few years with injuries, but Tyler Ennis was bought out by Minnesota last week, and he signs a 1-year deal for $650,000 with the Leafs. And I think this might be indicative of now that he's a winger. He doesn't play center, so he doesn't address the center need. But you add him, and he's probably a 4th line guy. And he's still capable of doing that. They have young wingers that I think would have to be moved if they're going to make the move for a defenseman. And that this, on top of what James Myrtle rumored yesterday, is that they're doing their due diligence. The Leafs are on Patrick Maroon. And if Maroon is open to signing a 1-year deal, which I think that's going to be the where the Leafs, all the guys that they try to add in free agency, they're going to add on 1-year deals because they can't go next year. But there are some players who will take a little more to sign a 1-year deal with Toronto with the prospect of either playing with Kadri, Matthews, or Tavares.
I mean, the numbers you put up, they give you the ability to sign a bigger deal next year is awesome. I mean, Maroon's speed is the issue, though, right? That's what they're saying in Edmonton, and that when you're, Now, I thought it was interesting that the GM went on the 31 Thoughts show yesterday and said what he said. Dubas said he they were talking about the signing of the big 4 players that they have got to deal with.
He says we can and we will.
Can and we will sign Nylander. Now, of course, Kapanen's not mentioned in there, right? So
Kapanen's not one of the 4. Kapanen is right now a 4th liner, maybe a 3rd liner.
Right, but he's just a 2nd liner on most teams. So he's.
No, I don't know about that. He scored 7 goals last year. He's 21 years old. He's extremely talented.
Yeah,
I really like him. I think he's going to be a good player, but he is not a 2nd line player right now. He's a 3rd, 4th line at best, with room to grow and improve.
He's like the William Karlsson of the Seattle team, in my opinion, in the future. Like he really could be. He could be very, very dangerous if he's given the right amount of ice time, but he's never going to get the ice time.
So the Oilers made a signing. They signed Ryan Strome to a 2-year deal. Now here's the thing: $3.1 million a year. Like he had 13 goals last year.
Yeah,
that's what he is. He's a 15 goal a year guy max.
It's funny, Russ, because if you look at the recent signings of guys who were RFA, guys like Boone Jenner was around a little over $3 million. Athanasiou was $3 million, and Strome, who I think had a disappointing year with Edmonton, there was a lot of expectation that he was going to score. He gets 3.1, and I'm like, yeesh.
Look, I'll give you a comparison, right? And I may get ripped for it, and I'm okay with it. I would rather have Anthony Duclair than Ryan Strome.
Yep.
Duclair on that 1-year deal might get me 22, 23 goals if they actually give him the ice time and a couple of decent line mates, or at least one decent line mate. Ryan Strome, I already know what he can't do.
Yeah, right. That's funny. They really, I mean, by the way, Duclair, they were over the moon about.
It's a good signing by Columbus. It is.
The fact that Columbus was over the moon about the fact that they got him. They really.
I hope they put him with Borkstrand, someone very creative like that. That's what I'm hoping.
I think they will, and I've always been a big Anthony Duclair fan. He's one of the really, he's just looking for the right spot type player, and this could be it. I mean, this because that team,
It's 650 for him compared to 3.1 for Ryan Strome. I got to tell you, I mean,
it feels like we traded somebody big for Ryan Strome. We have to continue to justify that.
Right. That's what it feels like.
That's what it feels like. And because we've seen those before, the continuing, like, we're going to sign because we still an incredibly valuable player because we traded Eberle for him, and that's a tough one.
One last thing on the Maroon thing, though. It's like when you were saying about his speed. I mean, essentially he would be replacing JVR, and JVR's speed was declining. So in the sense that he's not going to replace JVR's goals. He's probably not going to score 36, but he'll probably play that 15-minute a night role. Probably play in front of the net on the power play. I mean, that might make sense, but like I said, it has to be a one-year deal. If it's anything more than that, I don't think Toronto's going to bite.
Yeah, no, and I think they've got a good shot at him. I mean, I like I say, Devils fans should be outraged by this whole thing. It's like this is like an insane thing because I know he wants to play there, and he, you traded for him, you brought him in last year, he made it. He helped you get in the playoffs. He did a good job. He did everything you would ask him to do. Why are you sitting there and not offering him like a 3-year deal? Like, I thought Maroon would be a shoo-in for a 3-year deal with New Jersey.
It would seem like a natural.
With all that money and all that space and somebody who plays well with your MVP. That's crazy. I think it's just I don't understand it at all. I think that's just about it. We've got
actually, I got to tell you one funny thing.
Okay,
so
yeah, go ahead.
There's a GIF online of Quinn Hughes just ripping through in development camp through the legs of somebody, backhand pass that sets up a guy for probably what was a goal, right? His brother Jack puts ew.
You know what? I mean, Quinn Hughes is this draft was,
I'm telling you, he was. It's hard to believe that he was probably not appreciated enough.
The hardest decision had to be Detroit when it came to Detroit.
Detroit, because Arizona made it a hard decision for them.
Yeah, that first round when you're sitting there and you got those two guys on there, and they wanted them. They had used stitched onto a sweater somewhere. They were ready. They figured that had to be happening because and I'm sure first for him, maybe it's the better that he's not playing in his hometown, but I think that but the fact that and you can't go wrong with who Detroit drafted, but yeah, man, that was that
great. But Arizona did shake it up to the point where these teams then had to have them make these tough decisions where, boy, I don't know, Arizona may be kicking themselves if they don't have Quinn Hughes down the road.
I want to do a little teaser for Monday because on Monday we're going to discuss the Montreal Canadiens in depth because I'm working on a story about them, and I think that I've been hearing a lot. It's probably a little bit of a different opinion than most people have. I do think there are some crazy things out there being said. It's amazing when you watch the Canadian media, like I do a lot, of how much the Canadians are getting ripped, and I'm not saying that some of it isn't totally justified, but
and deserved.
Yes,
really deserved.
Some of it is, but there's also a lot that there's a lot of leaps and there's a lot of like piling on of hatred. But beyond that, we'll get into all of it. And and the one thing, because I'm sitting there and I'm watching them. Someone said to me today that okay, so Carey Price's contract, of course, hasn't started yet, right? It's starting officially this year, and that's the extension he signed, which is a big deal, a lot of money. The debate I want you guys to think about over the weekend, and you can give me your initial thoughts now, but everybody out there, if you want to watch on Monday, we'll get into this. If Carey Price had been a free agent, what would he have gotten? If he was a UFA right now.
If he was a UFA right now?
Yeah.
I think he would still get 5 years at $10 million a year.
Right. I think that's about right. He would not get 8.
No, but he still would. But
he'd break 8 figures, definitely.
So then to sit there and say that, like, as a lot of the, you've got Carey Price who's untradeable. That's ridiculous. Carey Price is totally tradable. Of
course he's tradable, but the minute you trade him, you have now set yourself back 5 years.
Right.
Well, no, Montreal, Montreal can't trade him. I'm not saying they're going to trade him, but and they could trade him if they wanted to officially admit to the rebuild, which and who knows what the Shea Weber thing means, and I'm not I think the Domi trade was okay, and I still think we got to find out what they do for Pacioretty. There's still things that
the rebuild, though, right? So
yeah,
you're never guaranteed you're gonna get a franchise goalie again.
Oh yeah, no, there's no question about that. And you'd have to get a goalie if you made if you traded Price, you'd have to get a goalie back. But you'd be able to you'd be able to get a goalie back. You know, it's just a matter of picking.
If you got Pecorine, how many years would you get him for?
Yeah, no, it'd have to be somebody different than that. It wouldn't be like
Yeah.
Pecorine. You know, it'd have to be somebody like a young, up and coming good
Even if I
goalie.
said John Gillies, I can't guarantee you he's going to have a career even close to Carey Price, and I like him.
Right. But something like that, you could go on because you're saving a lot of money. And if Calgary was in a situation where they thought they were close enough, or a team was in a situation like say San Jose was in a situation where they felt like they were close enough, there's Price is very tradable. It just makes me crazy. People sitting there saying that he's not like that. The salary is ridiculous. The 8 years part, okay, fine, we can sit and criticize that. But but after that, you can't criticize the number, and you can't criticize the fact that he's still not a great goalie.
But you are not going to get back the assets that you would get for Carey Price in a normal deal because of the cap hit. You're limiting your scope in terms of the teams that will be able to afford them, teams that will be willing to take on that financial commitment on. It's going to, it's sort of similar to Carlson, but Carlson hasn't signed the deal yet.
Yeah.
Carlson,
Our chat room, Matthew Perry wants us to give a shout out to his girl, Throatzilla. All right, there you go.
Matthew Perry, was he the same Matthew Perry from
Parry?
Yeah, Matthew Perry. Like
not
no, Parry, not Perry.
Well, come on, it's said the same way. It's pronounced the same way. Matthew Perry.
Without the buzz, it's just hockey. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.